Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of LearnMoTo. Today, we will share our maintenance routine after a long ride. Kung gusto mo magtagal ang motor mo at maiwasan ng premature na gastos, keep watching. Pag dinala mo ang bike mo sa extreme route na katulad ng Cordillera Level 2, maniwala ka, lahat ng sigit ng motor mo madudumihan. After 3 days of riding sa Cordillera, ito ang itsura ng mga motor. Siyempre, pagbalik natin na Maynila, ito ang unang-una natin gagawin. Wow, pogi na naman ang bike. Ready na naman for the next adventure. Pero teka muna, not so fast. Washing is just step 1. Para sa akin, half of the fun of motorcycling is doing my own maintenance. Kapag simpleng trabaho lang katulad ng change oil, spark plug, valve adjustment, brake pad replacement, etc., ako nang gumagawa niyan. Of course, nag-invest ako sa tools at service manual, pero ito mga one-time gastos lang to. Madaling mabawi ito mga to dahil hindi ka na kailangan magpunta na shop every time meron kailangan gawin sa bike mo. But more than savings, nag-i-enjoy talaga akong kalikutin yung bike ko. Kasi I get to know it intimately by doing so. Pero sa lahat ng ayaw ko, it's working on a dirty bike. Kaya sabi ko kanina, washing is just the first step. Ang number 1 na kalaban ng kahit anong machine ay dumi. Kapag ako'y nanggaling sa ride na maputik o tumawid ako ng ilog o baha, as soon as possible pagdating ko sa bahay, tanggal yung dalawang gulong nito. This is the only way para makita mo yung lahat ng dumi na sumingit sa ilalim nito. Ang front change sprocket sa karamihan ng mga motor ay nakatakip. Kaya hindi basta-basta naaabot ng washing ito. Ang naiipon na dumi sa front change sprocket ay major contributor sa madaling pagkasira nito. Parang sandpaper yung putik na yan pagka nasingit yan doon sa mga ngipin ng sprocket. Uubusin ito yan. Ang paborito kong gamiting panglinis ay kerosene. Maraming mekaniko all over the world ang recommended ito. I use brushes para maabot ko lahat ng singit na kayang abutin. After that, hino-hose down ko ito ng mabuti para ma-wash out yung dumi at yung mga kerosene na natira. Tingnan nyo kung gaano karaming dumi na huhulog na yan from the front change sprocket alone. Tingnan nyo kung gaano karaming putik ang hindi naabot ng car wash. Kalawang ang kasunod niyan kapag hindi mo ito tinanggal. The rear end of the bike is crucial kasi ang daming moving parts dito na naka-expose sa dumi. Ang shock, chain and sprocket, suspension arm, tsaka pivot. After brushing all parts, binabanlawan ko itong mabuti ng tubig para matanggal yung mga dumi. Basta may kulay brown akong nakikita, I will try my best to get it off. Pag iniwanan mo itong duming ito on your bike, kakainin ito both moving and non-moving parts. While the wheels are off the bike, it is also a good time to check the bearings and repack them if needed. Kahit na brand new pa ang bike mo, we highly recommend doing this pag tumawid ka sa tubig, lalo na pagka nalubog yung mga axle mo. Naalala ko tuloy nung brand new yung bike ko. Ang lakas ng loob kong tumawid ng tubig kasi alam ko bago yung mga shields yung axle ko. Pero at around 15,000 kilometers pa lang, nagulat ako nung nasira yung rear axle bearing ko. I realized that shields are very prone to failure when you go through muddy water. Kahit na bago pa ang shields mo, kapag nalubog ng matagal sa maduming tubig ang hub ng gulong, malaki ang chance na makasingit ang dumi. Ang duming ito ay magiging parang sandpaper na magpapaluwag ng shield para ito ay mag-leak at pasukin ng tubig ang bearing. Kapag nahaluan na ng tubig ang grasya ng bearing, malaki ang nababawas sa lubricating property nito at magsisimulang masira ang bearing. So please remember, kahit na brand new pa yung bike mo, the moment na tumawid ka ng tubig, it will not hurt to inspect the shields and bearing. Medyo abala, but it will go a long way in preventing premature bearing failure. With 42,000 kilometers on my bike, many of those run on less than perfect roads, hindi ako nagulat na may leak na ang mga dash shields ko. Tingnan nyo naman itong mga duming nakapasok na ito. Punasan muna ang lahat ng duming kayang tanggalin before removing the dash cover. Tapos, gumamit ka ng cutter knife blade, isingit mo to between the bearing body and the cover. Just make sure na hindi mo madadamage yung dash cover. You can use a screwdriver after naluwagan mo na yung cover para ma-minimize yung risk ng damage because of the blade. Ito ang itsura ng bearing na pinasok ng tubig. Ito yung tinatawag na kulay gatas. Anytime you see any lubricant of your bike with a milky color like this, take immediate action. Kapag sa engine oil mo nangyari ito, stop immediately and do not run that bike. You will incur major damage if you continue. Clean out the contaminated grease the best you can. Ideally, dapat pinull out ko tong bearing na to para malinis ko both sides. Pero hindi ko makita yung bearing puller ko. I use synthetic grease all the time. I overpack the bearing, pushing the grease in para lumabas to on the other side. Kasi nga hindi ko tinanggal yung bearing. Reinstall the cover by pushing it in, then punasan mo yung mga sumobra. Like I said, palitin na itong seal na to, but I need to put it back kasi inaantay ko pa yung replacement na in-order ko. Okay lang ito because I already repacked the bearings and I do not see any more wet rides within the year. May leak din yung seal on the other side, but it was not as bad as the first one. Pero I cleaned and repacked it as well. Siyempre yung back wheels ginawa ko rin. In case you don't know, nauubos din yung brake disc, hindi lang yung brake pads. So I periodically measure thickness with the caliper. On my bike, the minimum thickness is 4 mm. Meron pa akong 5. Make sure that you put everything back in their proper places. Kung wala kang service manual, take photos habang tinatanggal mo yung mga pyesa para alam mo kung paano ibalik ito. To make sure that your chain is tight against the alignment blocks, wrap a rag around a screwdriver and put this between the rear sprocket and the chain. Gently rotate the wheel forward para hatakin ng chain yung rear axle against the blocks. Do not overdo it. Just make sure na walang rattle yung blocks. I always follow manufacturer specifications, particularly on torque values. To double-check rear wheel alignment, I use this tool that I bought online. Napakadaling gamitin ito at mura pa. As you assemble, apply lubrication where needed, such as the front and rear axle, etc. This is very important. Pagkatapos mong higpitan yung front axle to the proper torque value, huwag mo munang hihigpitan yung pinch bolt o yung maliit na tornilyo doon sa dulo ng fork. Take the bike off the center stand first. Then, while holding the front brake, push the bike up and down several times. Ito ang paraan para masigurado mo na yung front axle mo tama yung lapat doon sa front fork. Pagkatapos ito, put the bike up on the center stand and then tighten the pinch bolt to the required torque. Matagal ko ng ugali ang maglagay ng thread locker sa lahat ng tornilyo ng bike ko. Kasi over time, lahat ng tornilyo ng bike ay maaaring lumuwag because of the vibration. May kaibigan ako na tuwing magra-ride kami, sigurado pagbalik kulang ng tornilyo yung motor niya. Para yung may-ari. Although naka-thread locker nga ako, I still make it a point after a long trip to check all torque values, just to be sure. Ang mga tinalakay natin ngayon ay yun lang mga bagay na kailangan ng special attention coming from a long ride such as Cordillera na hindi talaga maganda yung mga kondisyon. Although hindi ko na discuss, syempre kasama na rin yung pag-check ng standard items such as brake pad, fluid levels, electrical, etc. By the way, muntik ko nang makalimutan banggitin yung chain cleaning at lubrication, which you should do before, during, and after the ride. The usual recommendation is every 500 kilometers, dapat i-lubricate yung chain mo. Ang ginagawa ng marami ay nagbabango sila ng chain lube at ina-apply nila to at the end of each riding day. I don't need to do this kasi ang motor ko has an automatic chain oiling system na kailangan ko lang i-refill after about every 1,600 kilometers. Motorcycles are machines that are subject to wear and tear. By doing a post-ride checkup, makikita at maaayos mo agad kung ano man yung nasira o naging problema ng bike bago ito lumala. Naalala niyo ba yung low side ko during level 2? Nagasgas yung crash guard ko as expected at nagsimula na itong kalawangin by the time I got home. Tingnan niyo dito sa picture na to. Pero all it took was a little sandpaper, spray paint, and a new protector. And you can't even notice the difference now. It makes no sense na ipagpaliban mo ang post-ride check-up and maintenance. Kasi, kailangan mo din namang ayusin yung bike mo before the next ride. Ang hirap yata nung naghahabol ka ng repair para lang makasama ka sa isang ride. Motorcycling is a very fun and rewarding activity. Pero kung hindi maayos yung bike, baka sakit ng ulo lang ang abutin mo kapag nag-ride ka. Ang pag-maintain ng bike ay hindi naman kailangan maging napakabigat at napakahirap. Basta gawin mo lang ito regularly para yung kahit maliit pa lang yung diferensya, naaayos mo na, hindi na iipon yung problema. This concludes our Cordillera Level 2 story. Medyo iba yung ending namin kasi kami, hindi talaga natatapos yung ride namin hanggat hindi namin na ibabalik yung bike doon sa condition that it was in before we left for the ride. So that we'll be ready for the next. So that has been our episode for the week. Next week, babalik tayo doon sa ating mga paboritong topic, yung riding techniques. See you next time.